already.
Are you gonna ask me like any questions at the beginning?
Hello.
Hey.
Can you please tell me your full name and how old you are?
Like my middle name too?
Sure.
Levi.
Why? Will you put your feet down so that this didn't shake?
I want my feet up. I'll just keep them still.
Here.
No, I'll just keep them still.
Okay. What's your full name? I don't even know what your middle name is.
Levi Joe Mullenhour. That's my grandpa. His name is Joe, not Joseph.
Okay.
What was the other question?
How old are you?
25.
Okay.
Ish.
Okay. How do you feel right now?
How many words can I use to describe how I feel?
However many.
Happy, excited, nervous, and hungry.
Okay. So the deal is I'm going to give you 10 minutes. Talk about whatever you want. And then after the 10 minutes are up, I will ask you 5 questions and we will be done.
I thought it was 15 minutes.
It's 10 minutes. The 5 questions are the last.
Okay.
You're moving your feet. Okay.
Is all this awkward sound going to be in the video too?
There's no awkward sound. Yes, continue.
Yes.
Okay. You're on the clock.
I'm on the clock. So I never really knew what I wanted to do with my life.
Mm-hmm.
So like in high school, like everyone's applying to colleges and I'm like, well, so I'm like, I guess I'll go to community college and try to figure it out. And so like I met with the recruitment lady, like she came and like signed people up for classes, and I liked school and I liked history, so I'm like, maybe I'll be a history teacher. So I took a couple education classes, some history classes, and then after a year of community college, I was kind of like, okay, like I want to be a teacher. I want to get the hell out of here because it was community college. So then I transferred to SIUE, and it was a lot bigger town than I was from. There was a lot of diversity, which I didn't have growing up, and so that was kind of a shock. So I think it was over the summer, I was applying for research positions just to like, well, it was a good paying job. And it's also a research university, and so like, I knew that I kind of wanted to like go beyond a bachelor's degree and like do like action research on like classroom strategies and like what makes good teachers. So I applied to a couple, and the only one that I got called back on was a nursing research thing. But it was kind of cool because it was researching the pensions of Civil War nurses. So I like met with the professor, and then over the summer, I got a phone call from the programs director saying, hey, this isn't gonna happen. She backed out of the project. So I was super bummed because it was like $1,200 that I was gonna get, plus like really solid experience and like faculty mentoring and, but the director was like she's like, this has never happened. I feel really bad for you. She's like, I see there were a couple other projects you were interested in. I'm gonna see what I can do to transfer the funding from that project to another project so that you can still have that experience. I'm like, okay. She's like, no promises. But then the next day I had a voicemail from this professor, Vicky Scott, and she was like super cheery and happy, and she's like, hey, like, Dr. Paolo told me what's going on. I would love to have you on my research project. We're researching grit and how it develops in kids. I'm like, absolutely. Like, didn't ask any questions, just said yes. And so we had our first meeting when the school started, and she was asking like availability for like meetings, and then she said, well, we're gonna try an after school program. We're gonna do it on Thursdays, and we're gonna do it in East St. Louis. And I was like, what am I getting myself into? But it felt like there was a reason the first project failed, and it felt like there was a reason that this one was happening. So I just trusted that like God had a bigger plan, and I said okay. And so I forgot the day. I used to have it because it's such an important day for me as a person and educator. But I pulled off of 64 into East St. Louis. I was terrified I was going to get shot. And then the school was right off the interstate, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to get shot. I'm like, but this is some like really sketchy shit. And so I was like scared, and then I got there, and the kids were wonderful. We did the program for 2 years, and then Dr. Scott offered me a graduate research position, just like a funded position that would pay for like my grad school and also give me money to work, and I said yes. And so the plan was to keep researching grit, but she ended up taking a position in Arkansas, so that was kind of sad. But she set everything up so I could still get my funding, still go to grad school basically for free. I still worked at the school in East St. Louis as like a guidance counselor doing like college and career stuff. But I think it was during the beginning of the second year I started to like get really comfortable, and I was reading a book by Jonathan Kozol, and it was called Savage Inequalities, and so it looked at like just these huge inequalities and these huge like gaps of wealth and like experience between like affluent kids and kids in poor neighborhoods. And so he went all across the country, and one of the cities he stopped in was East St. Louis. And so I didn't meet him, like the book was published, but that would have been cool. So he interviewed this journalist, I think from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and he was a person of color, and he said that the biggest nightmare for most white people is to be traveling to St. Louis and end up in East St. Louis by mistake. Like that is like the biggest fear of people. Which growing up, like that was the biggest fear. Is like you take the wrong exit, you get lost in East St. Louis. And he said the real nightmare to me is that there are kids here. And so when I read that, it made me realize how important it was that those kids had good educators. And I felt like just out of undergrad, I wasn't a good teacher. So that's part of the reason I went to grad school, because I wanted to be a really good teacher for those kids, because that's what they deserved. And there was a teacher shortage in Illinois, and I also knew that they just didn't have the best teachers, and so I wanted to be that person. So I did grad school. My thesis was on culturally responsive teaching, which is basically how to be a great teacher, even though you don't have the same shared experience as your kids. So being middle class and white, teaching kids who are very, very, very underprivileged, and not white. And it was really tough, like discovering like white privilege and like questioning it and understanding it and accepting it. There were nights I didn't sleep. There were nights I cried, wondering like if I had been a bad person my whole life for having like these opportunities and experiences. But it all like culminated in getting that first teaching job. I sent off 60 applications and got one phone call back, and took the job right then on the spot. And by no means am I like the best teacher, but I know for a fact that I'm a damn good teacher because that's what my kids deserve. And if I have a bad day, I reflect on it and make changes and always try to better myself, because that's what I ask my kids to do is you can always do better. Yeah. How much time do I have?
1 minute.
1 minute. And like it's just, I had not experienced diversity in my life until I went to college, and I had not experienced extreme diversity until I went to East St. Louis. And now teaching in St. Louis, it's just normal. Like not that like I don't see color, because that's stupid. It's there, but I don't feel different, and I feel like I'm making a difference.
So when you're are you done now?
Yeah, that's a good place to stop before I start crying.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Do you have to ask me 5
I have
questions?
to ask you 5 questions. You can only answer them in a sentence. Like each of the questions is
Okay.
a sentence. Question number 1, are you happy?
I'm very happy.
Question 2, what is your biggest fear in life?
My biggest fear is failing my students.
What brings you the most joy in the whole world?
My dog, Macy.
How do you feel right now?
At peace.
Can I give you a...
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yay! Say hi.